Look at the numbers for a second. Just the numbers. 6 figures, professional nanny, financial stability, a career she genuinely loves, versus $50,000, family business, volatile firefighter, hometown forever. Now, here's the ultimatum. You have until June to get a real job. Think about what that sentence actually means. A woman earning more than double her husband's income is being told her career, her 6-figure career, isn't real. That the work she's built, the financial foundation she's creating, the life she's actively funding, doesn't. June. That's the deadline, not a conversation, not a compromise, a countdown. And here's what makes this story darker than it first appears. She lives with his parents. She adores them. By the way, her words, not mine. The original plan was simple. Save money, buy a house, build a future. She's doing her part. She's earning. She's contributing. She's meeting the goal they set together. But somewhere between our plan and his shame, the goalposts moved. Now ask yourself, what kind of pressure convinces someone that success is embarrassing? What whispers in a man's ear until his wife's achievement feels like his failure? Drop a comment and tell me if you've ever been told your accomplishments were the wrong kind of success. Subscribe and turn on notifications because this story reveals something about control that most people don't see until it's too late. This isn't about career choices. This is about who gets to define what real means. Picture the house, his parents' house, the place where she moved after marriage, full of optimism and shared goals. The place where she wakes up every morning, goes to work earning 6 figures, and comes home to the growing silence of resentment. There's no physical crime scene here, no empty office, no disturbed furniture. But there's an absence just as chilling.
The absolute pro.
Somewhere in that house, in conversations we're not hearing, a husband looks at his wife's success and feels, what? Inadequacy? Embarrassment? The specific word matters less than the decision it produces. Get a real job by June. Here's the trophy. Here's the central mystery. How does a woman who makes double her husband's income become the problem in her own marriage? Let's talk about what she actually does. Professional nanny, not babysitting, not watching kids. A career she's built over nearly a decade, skilled enough and valuable enough that families pay her 6 figures. That's not entry-level work. That's not until I find something better. That's expertise. And here's what she's being told to trade it for. An admin position, entry-level, in an industry where she hasn't worked for almost 10 years. A job that would pay generously, estimating maybe $30,000 to $40,000 annually. The math alone should end this conversation. Cut her income by more than half, delay the house they're supposedly saving for, push their financial goals back years. For what? So he's not embarrassed. Before we go deeper, I need you to understand something. This story isn't rare. If this sounds familiar, if you've ever been asked to shrink so someone else could feel bigger, drop a comment and share where you're watching from. Subscribe because when we unpack the psychology behind ultimatums like this, you need to see the patterns before they trap you. Here's what you need to understand. She recently got her green card. That detail isn't incidental. That's vulnerability in legal form. Immigration status ties her to this marriage in ways that go beyond emotion. And the timing of this ultimatum, right after she secured legal stability, that's... Now the question becomes, is this about embarrassment or control? Is this about his shame over her career or his fear of her independence? Let's find out. Before we talk about what's being asked of her, you need to understand who she actually is. She's someone who chose care work, not as a fallback, not as a stepping stone, but as a genuine calling. I genuinely enjoy what I do, were her exact words. In a world that constantly tells women their worth is measured in corner offices and C-suite titles, she found work that matters to her and excelled at it enough to earn 6 figures. That's not lack of ambition. That's clarity. Think about the journey to 6-figure nanny work. The families who trust you with their children's development, safety, education, emotional well-being. the references you've built, the reputation that gets you recommended, the skills, childhood development, conflict resolution, educational planning, emergency response, dietary restrictions, special needs accommodation that make you worth that salary. She didn't stumble into this income. She built it. And here's what we know about her values. Here's what most people don't understand about the social dynamics around male breadwinners. It's not actually about money. If it were about money, he'd be celebrating her income, leveraging it, using it to accelerate their house goals. But that's not what's happening. This is about identity, about what he hears when friends ask, "What does your wife do?" About what he feels when he says she's a nanny and watches their reactions, about the stories he's telling himself about what her career says about him, because in his framework, real job means corporate, office, title, the kinds of jobs that come with business cards and LinkedIn updates, the kinds of jobs he can name at family gatherings without adding context or defense. She earns six figures doing work she loves. She's financially positioned to be the primary driver of their house buying goal. She's legally stable now with her green card, which took time, effort, stress, and probably money to achieve. And her husband wants her to quit. Not to transition into something equally lucrative, not to pivot into a different six-figure industry, to take an entry-level admin job she's not qualified for, hasn't done in a decade, and would pay less than half what she currently makes. Here's what changes everything: the geographic cage. He insists they never move out of his hometown, a town they realistically can't afford on their combined income if she takes that admin job. He wants to stay because of the firehouse, because of his volunteer position, because of roots that matter deeply to him. But those roots only matter when they're his. Her career flexibility, her earning potential, her ability to afford a house in a more reasonable market. Those aren't roots. Those are dismissed as negotiable, as less important than his unpaid volunteer work. Now ask yourself, what happens to someone who realizes their six-figure contribution to the family finances matters less than their partner's unpaid community service? Let's be forensically precise about the power dynamic here. She has the income. He has the ultimatum. She has the financial leverage. He has the hometown mandate. She has marketable skills in a lucrative field. He has shame about what neighbors think. She wants to understand his perspective. He gave her a deadline. This isn't about career preferences. This is about one partner unilaterally redefining the terms of the marriage and giving the other partner a countdown to comply. June. That's when her real job requirement expires. But here's the question haunting this timeline. What happens in July if she hasn't complied? Here's the systemic problem most people miss: immigration status as invisible leverage. She recently got her green card. For anyone who hasn't navigated U.S. immigration, understand what that means: years of paperwork, thousands in fees, constant uncertainty, and legal vulnerability that shapes every decision you make. Your marriage isn't just emotional, it's documentation. Your spouse isn't just your partner, they're your pathway to legal stability, and she just secured that stability. Now the ultimatum arrives. This is where the case stalls on something darker than career disagreement, because there's a power imbalance baked into the foundation of this relationship that has nothing to do with income and everything to do with whose belonging is guaranteed. He was born here. His hometown is his hometown by birthright. His family is established. His community knows him. His volunteer firefighter position exists because he's rooted in ways she can never be, at least not in the same generational way. She's building belonging, still proving it, still earning it, still vulnerable to the reality that her legal status, while now secure, came through the marriage she's currently being given, ultimatums within. Here's what the system doesn't account for. What happens when the person who helped sponsor your immigration becomes the person who demands you dismantle the career that makes you financially independent? The hometown mandate adds another layer. He's not just asking her to change careers. He's asking her to accept permanent geographic limitation based on his volunteer work, while her six-figure earning potential gets dismissed as less important. Think about it this way. He wants her to take a massive pay cut, accept an entry-level position she's not qualified for, abandon work she loves, and commit to living forever in a town they can't afford on the reduced income so he doesn't have to feel embarrassed at the firehouse. That's not compromise. That's systemic erasure disguised as career advice. And the June deadline? That's not partnership. That's a countdown to compliance. You want this to be about miscommunication. It's easier to fix if they just haven't found the right words yet, haven't sat down properly, haven't really listened to each other's perspectives. Misunderstanding is solvable. Get a good couples therapist, learn some communication tools, maybe read a book about love languages, and everything sorts itself out. So let's test miscommunication. Let's see if it survives contact with what she actually wrote. He told me I have until June to get a real job. That's not unclear. Now ask yourself, what does someone gain when their spouse is financially dependent? She's currently making six figures. She could, if she needed to, support herself independently. She could afford to leave. She could choose her own geographic location. She could make decisions based on her own goals rather than his approval. Now remove that income. Put her in an entry-level admin job earning 30–40K in a town that's too expensive for their current combined income. Make her completely reliant on his family's house, his family's goodwill, his hometown, his community ties. How easy is it to leave a marriage when you can't afford housing in the town your spouse insists you stay in? Here's what this theory explains: the timing. Right after the green card, right after she secured legal stability that doesn't depend on the marriage, the ultimatum arrives, not before, after. The geographic mandate makes more sense too. We can never move out of his hometown. Isn't about the firehouse. You can volunteer at firehouses in other towns. New communities always need firefighters. But moving gives her options. Other job markets, different cost of living, distance from his family's house, and the leverage that comes with living under their roof. If this story is affecting you, if you recognize these patterns from your own relationships or someone you care about, share this video. The more people who understand how control dresses itself up as concern, the harder it becomes for these dynamics to stay hidden. And drop a comment. Tell me which theory you think explains this better, because your perspective matters. Let's try the hardest one. Let's try to build a case where his position makes sense. Maybe nanny work, even at six figures, doesn't offer the career trajectory, benefits, retirement planning, or professional development that corporate work provides. Maybe he's thinking long term. What happens when she's 50, 60, when physical care work becomes harder? Maybe he genuinely believes an admin position, even entry level now, could grow into something stable with benefits and a 401k. Maybe the hometown limitation is about community, about raising future children near grandparents, about values that go deeper than cost of living calculations. And maybe the real job phrasing, while poorly chosen, comes from a place of legitimate concern that she's not hearing because she's defensive about her career. Here's the problem with this theory. He didn't offer to support her through a career transition. He gave her a deadline. He didn't research what lateral moves might preserve her income while addressing his concerns. He dismissed her entire field as not real. Concern asks questions. Control issues ultimatums. Here's what we have. Here's what we don't have. We have his ultimatum, June deadline for real job, her income, six figures. His income, around $50K geographic mandate, never leaving hometown immigration status, recent green card living situation, his parents' house, her growing awareness. My goals, career, and opinions matter less. We don't have his side of the story. The conversations leading to this ultimatum, What happens in July if she doesn't comply? Whether his parents know about the ultimatum, whether she's expressed her concerns to him directly, what her else looks like, whether she's financially prepared to leave. The missing piece that haunts this case, her next move. Because everything we've analyzed, the theories, the power dynamics, the